Hello and welcome to Our Experts Podcast. I am Carol Matichka, your host, bringing you fascinating perspectives from the world and realm of pharmacy. Well, hello. Today we have with us Philip Rogero. He's a financial advisor with Rogero Wealth Planning. And I thought it'd be great to bring someone on who can really give us some information regarding our health, our wealth health, if you will. And Philip's been doing this for a very long time with our pharmacy students. And this is an area I feel is so important for pharmacy students as well as pharmacists as we move through our career, but we really just don't talk about it enough. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. And just to give you all a little bit of information about Philip, he's a local financial planner or advisor and the president of Rogero Wealth Planning. He's been working with UF College of Pharmacy since 2012 and works with many of our current graduated students as well. He provides personalized financial planning services and helps his clients to define and achieve their financial goals and protect, of course, the ones they love, which is so important. Philip's a perennial top producer and consistently achieves many industry awards, such as the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors Quality Business Award and Florida Top 4 Under 40 Advisor Award, and he's won that several times, actually. He's grown his clients to span 15 states and holds 2 professional designations, Financial Services Certified Professional, as well as the Chartered Retirement Plan Specialist. And those are granted by the College for Financial Planning. So thank you, Philip, for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's great to be here as well.
Well, so before we get started, I like to ask everyone, just give us a little bit of information about yourself personally.
Yeah, local to St. Augustine, Florida. So we born and raised here. So my office is in St. Augustine off International Golf Parkway. Um, I um, I do financial planning, business planning, personal planning, and so basically just help my clients navigate the complexities of figuring out how to build their life, how to accumulate wealth and be tax efficient and grow their families and protect their families. I've got a young family myself, 4 kids, all under 10 years old, so I have a very busy household. And I think
Yours.
the neat fact is I'm third generation in financial planning. So my grandfather did it. My father does it. I have a brother that is in the business as well, and I also do it. So it's been fun, but it's kind of in our blood.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of your clients, as I stated before, include healthcare professionals, and that's actually how we first met. You were advising some of our young pharmacists, which was fantastic. So how did you begin working with this particular group of individuals? How'd you find that niche?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So early in my career, I did a review of my book of business and the clients I was working with, and I realized I worked with a lot of pharmacists, and so I dug in a little further, and kind of uncovered that they've got a lot of the same concerns. And so as I did that, I started to think about how I could better serve that market of my practice, and realized if I could get to them sooner and really help with cash flow decisions, help with planning and investments, I could really have a much larger impact for them. And so I decided I was going to do some research and figure out where all of the College of Pharmacies were, and kind of pitched myself to multiple colleges, and started to do presentations on how to properly build your financial home and accumulate wealth the right way, and just increase efficiencies and decision making and everything else. And so that's kind of how it all got started. I started it with the College of Pharmacy at UF, like you said, over a decade ago, and I've been doing it pretty much every year since.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and we appreciate all that. So many of our listeners are either in school or they're recent grads and they're excited to get into their careers, but they're certainly stressed about loans that they have and some other important decisions that they have to make, like possibly buying a home, etc. So, how do you work with those young professionals, and what advice can you give to them as they're really starting off early on in their careers?
Yeah, it's tough sometimes, but I think the best way to get across to everybody who's younger is really to tell a story. And the story that I like to tell is really kind of what your life is going to be like. And it's the fact that we really kind of all have a movie playing in our minds. And the movie is exactly kind of how our life's going to play out, right? And we have a lot of similarities. I've noticed that the similarity of pretty much everybody that I work with and speak to is that we all tend to be a little overly optimistic with life. Um,
Not a
and I'm
bad
sure
thing.
yeah, I'm sure you can attest that, life throws those curveballs at us, but when we graduate, we kind of know we're going to get into our career, we're going to make good money, we're going to start our family, maybe own a pharmacy, start a pharmacy ourselves, but have a lot of kids and provide great education for them. We're going to accumulate our wealth and maybe sell that pharmacy and be able to retire at 50 and 55 years old. And from there, we're going to have really good health and we're going to live to be 100 years old. And one day, just put our head down on our pillow and wake up staring at the pearly gates. And it's kind of a funny story, but it's really not exaggerating much because the point is that we all believe nothing bad will happen to us, right? And so we're overly optimistic with life, and inevitably life's going to get in the way of our plans, and we're going to have those forks in the road and the potholes, the tough decisions, and that can be with our career, it can be with our family, it can be with our finances, and so I just tell everybody, we don't have a crystal ball, and the whole purpose of planning is to make sure that we can bulletproof your future, and to the extent that you can plan. And so there's ways to do that, and the key to that is really just finding somebody that you can work with, a trusted advisor that you can work with for a long time, and start a relationship with them early on, and just utilize them, use them as a sounding board, and you'll be much better off for it.
Yeah. No, that's great, and it's so true, and I think telling that story, that really helps make things click, so appreciate that. And how do you simplify financial planning for those that feel overwhelmed with really the immense amount of information and decisions that they have to make? There's quite a bit out there.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So I have found in really doing the presentations, another way that it's kind of clicked easier for everybody is kind of teaching it like building your financial home, right? It's very similar to building a home. The first steps to building a home are kind of clearing the lot and laying the foundation of the house, and the foundation is what keeps the house up. And so once we really need to have really good plans to build a house, right? So you follow the plans, you know what you want in the future, and you know how to work the plans to build the house so that it can withstand any financial storm that comes. And so the foundation is really the protection of your future, and the most important thing we teach is you got to protect the thing that you can least afford to lose, and that is your income. It's your earning potential. And so for all the pharmacists we work with, you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to getting your education in there, and you come out making a great income. And the last thing you want is something to happen that would cause you to be unable to go to work and earn that income. So
Sure.
there's tremendous earning potential there. And so we want to make sure we protect that. And the other foundational pieces, if you've got a family, is estate planning and other things. And then we start to focus on the walls. And the walls of the home are like the investments. They're exciting. They're neat to see go up. They're exciting to watch grow, but you don't put the walls up before you put the foundation up. And so it's important to understand what you have provided through your employer benefits, and we kind of coordinate all of that. And then we start, working on the roof, and which is, strategy planning and other things. And so I just kind of teach it in stages, like building a home, and it tends to simplify it and make it where it's understandable, and really helps younger folks really focus on the important steps first, and not to put the cart before the horse.
I like that because there's just so much out there and they have to make so many decisions. So that's great. So what are the first steps then you would advise somebody after they initially graduate or when they're about to graduate?
Yeah, the first step, and this is a great question. This is so important. It's really the first step for everybody is to understand your cash flow, and maybe your expected cash flows. And so to make sure that you do your best to complete a budget worksheet, something that you can kind of get an idea of what's coming in and what you expect to spend, and then kind of benchmark that. And so what we teach is kind of a 50-30-20 budget, and 50% goes towards income needs, 30% going towards wants, and then 20% going towards savings, or debt repayment, et cetera. And so as cash flow changes, we can modify that obviously, and put more towards saving or more towards lifestyle. But if you can figure out your budget in the beginning, That's the most important step, and then making sure you're accumulating an emergency fund. That's the next most important step is with the cash flow is to build 3 months of cash reserves in a smart place that's quickly accessible for the unexpected to happen. And then the other thing I think is if you're able to do that and you get there quickly is if you can take advantage of saving into a Roth IRA early on. I work with obviously all the pharmacists I work with make a solid income, and a lot of times when they get married, they kind of push themselves outside of the income limit to be able to fund Roth IRAs, and that's one of the most tax efficient vehicles that we look to fund. So those would be the first three steps that I would say to get started with.
Perfect. That's really helpful. And so you mentioned about, potentially stocks or the market, and we see a lot of swings. We're seeing some swings going on even right now, and that can be kind of scary. And the stock market really can be quite difficult, honestly, to understand and a little bit overwhelming, especially for some of our recent grads I've heard. So how do you help those who work with all of that to really stay on course?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I think, the stock markets are absolutely scary and overwhelming. And I think, we try to take a more educational approach because the better you understand something, you kind of get more comfortable with it. But I think it really starts with kind of looking at things through the lens of a financial plan, mapping out your future and understanding where you are and where you want to be, and what you need to do to reach those goals in the most efficient manner. And when we do that, we are able to stress test the plan, stress test the ups and downs of the markets and everything else that goes along. And so we can really tell you, with all of the historical data, you would make it, and it gives you the confidence to get there and just to stick to the plan. I think that's the most important thing is sticking to the plan and making sure you have a consistent savings and accumulation strategy that is efficient and that allows you to reach those goals. And if the probability of success is lower or less than what you'd like, we can discuss and talk through kind of the ways we can get you there. And sometimes you do what you can do early on, and then as debt frees up, and we have additional cash flows, we can begin to save more. We can kind of bridge the gap of what is needed in the long run.
Yeah, those ups and downs, I think, make people nervous, but sticking to the plan and following through, I think, certainly is something that I've learned myself along the way. So, for those who may be listening and in the middle of their career, what advice can you provide to those individuals about 401ks and really maybe some plans at this point in their life and at that point in time? And what should they be considering that would help them to be more successful financially?
Yeah, I think as you're kind of in the middle of your career, it's making sure you have the right savings and accumulation strategy. And I think tax efficiency is something we really tend to focus on, but it's a strategy with how to coordinate insurance with investments and other products and solutions out there. There's really truly understanding that everything has a purpose. It's not right for everybody, but when you understand where they fit and kind of how they work together, we can really optimize income at retirement time and efficiencies and create more security and stability at retirement time. And so I would say, really to get an understanding, again, work with an advisor who has a good grasp of each of those things. And so they understand how they work together, not necessarily one-sided one way or the other, because they have a very important relationship with each other to drive security and income at retirement time.
Mm, yeah. And we also, speaking of retirement, we have some listeners who may actually see retirement just around the corner. And I'm sure that they have some concerns about when can they retire? How long will their money last? All of that's really important. So what type of recommendations do you make for those pharmacists?
Absolutely. I would highly recommend, if they haven't done it, to really look at to benchmark where they are in the context of a personalized financial plan. And those do cost some money, but they're well worth the expense. And they can save you exponential money in the long run. They really allow an advisor to give you the right advice in a fiduciary capacity and benchmark where you are with respect to your goals. And we just find that it's a much easier process for clients. It really hones in on what they need to be focusing on, and helps us to give the best advice because it's specific to them and specific to their goals.
Okay, very helpful. So, some of our listeners are also independent pharmacy owners, and they might be considering expanding their businesses, for instance. So, do you have recommendations for those who want to take that leap of faith and expand their business, perhaps?
Absolutely. I would obviously expanding business is a great opportunity. I would just say to approach it carefully. And so with the business planning, I would say just start with making sure that you're personally secure and protected, and make sure that you've got room to stretch and grow. I would highly advise that you understand your cash flows and the cash flow needs of the business, and make sure you've got a clear vision for expansion. And the biggest purpose, to I think, that we focus on with clients is making sure they're doing it the right way, but also making sure they see and can understand, what's the purpose for expansion to improve. Is it to improve their lifestyle and cash flow, to retire early? Is it, and so making sure they understand the risk they're taking and what they're hoping to get out of that. And so just kind of looking forward and working through all of those different items, but first securing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a lot of great information, extremely helpful. We appreciate it. So, do you have anything else you want to include for our listeners today? And then, of course, if they want to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you if they have questions?
Yeah, thank you. Now, I think my advice is just to start with the budget, and if you haven't done one, make sure you understand your cash flows. If you haven't, or if you aren't working with a financial advisor or a planner, it's best to get with somebody early in your career and just begin building a trusted advisor relationship where you can use them as a sounding board. There's so many instances when I work with people that decisions have been made and there's regrets. And so a lot of times, if you can just bounce something off of somebody, you can have a different perspective with an advisor who's really worked and dealt with all these different scenarios and can give you advice that can really help have a tremendous impact in the long run for you. And so that would be my advice: is work with somebody, and start with understanding your cash flows and making sure you're protecting your future. And then if anybody wants to reach out, I'm sure that the podcast will have my information, but my you can reach me on my office line or my email, and I'm happy to sit down and we can schedule a free consultation and see how where I can help.
Okay, great. We'll include all your information in the show notes as well. So, we appreciate that. Well, we want to thank you, Philip, for joining our podcast today. Thank you also to our listeners who are out there. We appreciate your support of the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast as well as the YouTube channel. And take care, everyone. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you. My pleasure.